Okay, well, Mirele, let's get started.
I'd really love to hear, since we're an intimate group, I'd love to hear
Yes,
why everyone else is on this call and what they would like to get out of it.
that would be great.
Instead of doing my prepared remarks.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So if you are able to tell us verbally or put in the chat why you're here, what are you interested in hearing? Those are people I know.
Unmute, Debbie, and tell us. Or Hal, one of you. Can you unmute?
Okay, hi. So both Hal and I are, we are Hody's aunt and uncle. And I'm sorry, Rabbi Nemes.
It's okay.
And we're just very concerned with the catastrophe we're facing right now. And I have some agency because I'm a university professor at a university that is very concerned with sustainability. So there are lots of opportunities for me to spread the word. I'm also the faculty council chair of the Hillel at Boston University. So I've got opportunities. So everything I can learn, I'm trying to soak up.
Fantastic. Hal,
Thanks, Debbie.
Oh,
yeah, Hal, you're in charge. I forgot.
No, you're really in charge. Go for it, Hal. Anything to add?
Nothing of substance other than to concur that for Debbie and me, the catastrophe that we are in, how do we find a way to a place of joy around that, and what are the continuing to get ideas about what people can do. So.
Great.
Fantastic. Thank you.
My work also puts me in a situation where I work with a lot of companies and can have some kind of an influence on their environmental policies. So.
Amazing. Devere, do you want to add anything? Danny?
You need to unmute.
Yeah, now I need permission to unmute. Thank you. Yeah, hi. I suppose one of the things I was interested in is trying. I think generally one of the things people think is that, I want to do something, but anything that I do is going to be a drop in the bucket, not going to really make an impact. So I think people perhaps think that maybe if you can change government policy, that's a significant change. But anything else, what other things can people do that actually they can feel like they're not just reducing their personal footprint, but actually making a genuine difference?
Love it. Thank you, Danny. And also, I think even in advocacy, it can sometimes feel like we're a drop in the bucket. So maybe Mirele can address that. Anyone else want to jump in?
What about the lurkers? Eva? Would you like to say something? Do you have to unmute them or they can unmute them?
No, I think Eva's lurking on a different. Oh, hi, Eva. Yeah. And hi, Dahlia.
Sorry.
Glad you made it.
Oh.
No pressure, Eva. We know you're busy with back end things. It's okay.
Yeah,
why don't we turn to Dahlia for a second? Dahlia, can you unmute? I'm asking. There you go.
No, it wasn't letting me do that. Hi, apologies. I had the wrong link, so I was waiting for another meeting to start. Hi, everyone.
Oh, no worries. Hello, Dahlia. Dahlia Rockowitz, Washington Director of Dayenu, a Jewish Call to Climate Action, which is a really exciting brand new national Jewish climate organization. And Dahlia has worked in all kinds of Jewish and climate activism, AJWS, the Climate Reality Project, and we're really excited that you're here, Dahlia. We were just hearing a little bit about who's in the room. We have an intimate crowd. So maybe, Mirele, based on what you've heard, and Dahlia, we can fill you in. Could you just share a little bit about sort of how your groups came to be, or why do we need both of these Jewish climate groups, and how are they addressing the need to, the urgency? We just heard about how urgently we need to act. Mirele, you want to lead off?
Yeah, thank you for those great comments. They're really helpful to know why you're here, and just thank you for being here. So I was actually going to go back to 2014. Hody already mentioned the People's Climate March, which was the biggest climate march that ever took place in the United States and maybe anywhere at the time. And I got involved in it because I was invited to an organizing meeting that was held in a union hall in New York City about 3 months before the march was supposed to take place. And we went down to this hall, and we heard from a union leader, we heard from an environmental justice leader, we heard from some clergy, really inspiring speeches about how we could come out, and by marching in the streets, maybe we would be able to influence the UN summit that was coming up, and especially President Obama at the time, to really take some strong action on climate. And after they gave all these inspiring speeches, they said, now we would like you to turn to the person next to you and tell them what you are going to do to get people to turn out at this march. They said, we can organize the march, but we can't get the people to be there. So what can you do? The person that you are, please tell the person next to you. And I turned to that person and I thought, there's only one thing I could do, which is get Jews to come, because that's who I know. I know a lot of Jews. And it was a great organizing strategy because, of course, we had all then committed to somebody sitting there next to us that we would get people to come out. And I think that that's really an answer to Debbie, your question as well, which is, what can you do? You already started to tell us that as a professor, that's something you can do. And to really think about where you have your connections and, where do you have influence and how you can get people to get involved. And the question was really, how did Jewish Earth Alliance come about? And I would say that just set me on a path of organizing Jews in different ways. And after a couple of years later, I moved down to Washington, DC. And I was thinking about, well, what could I do being in Washington, DC? Again, what could I do? And I knew it had to be organizing Jews, but it was a special opportunity to be in Washington, DC. And so the idea came of organizing something to help Jewish communities to connect with their members of Congress, which was something that I really felt when I was in New York, seemed very far away, but once I got to Washington, seemed like a real possibility to take advantage of that opportunity. So I will leave it at that and let Dahlia have a little word about Dayenu.
Thanks, Mirele. So I also am sitting in the Washington, D.C. area, and I joined Dayenu about 5 months ago, which is about half of the lifespan of Dayenu. We are a new organization, a little over a year old, and the foundation story behind the organization, I think, resonates with a lot of us in that Rabbi Jenny Rosen, the CEO and founder of Dayenu, she had a moment in 2015 where the reality of the climate crisis really hit home. She was visiting her father in the Bay Area, and there was a terrible heat wave. And that was her realization that the climate crisis is not in the future. The climate crisis is happening now. I know that I experienced that with Superstorm Sandy. My parents live in the New York area, and they were out of power for 7 days. My mom lost power again for 5 days, Superstorm Isaias last year. And so I think a lot of us are really coming home to this idea that the climate crisis is happening now. The second part of that is a statistic from 2014 that found that 80% of American Jews are either alarmed or very concerned about the climate crisis. But 80% of the Jewish community is not making climate a central issue. And in particular, we're not connecting the dots in the ways that we could be around climate and environmental justice. And I was so glad that that was included in tonight's program, but it was still its own piece. Let's explore it as a singular issue and not how we can explore climate and justice as interlapping interlocking and overlapping in everything that we do. And so building off of incredible work that's been happening in the Jewish community, Mirele has been at this with multiple organizations, the Shalom Center, Kojal, Chazon. There's great work happening, but we realize that we need to be turning up the heat. We need to be building a movement. We need to bring those 80% of Jews off the sidelines. And so Dayenu was founded to give meaningful action opportunities for American Jews to build a movement to work alongside multi-faith and secular climate organizations to ensure that as many people as possible are fighting for climate solutions, and climate solutions at the systems level, not just about individual action. That's a great first step, but that we're meeting this moment, the urgency of the moment, by moving our money away from fossil fuels, by changing policy at the local, state, and federal level, by changing our political system, and much more. So that is our intention and hope. And 1 year in, we're excited to see what else we can do moving forward.
That is great. Wow, thank you. Could you guys just add a bit about the nuts and bolts of how you actually achieve, like, what do you do? How do you reach legislators, policymakers? What does that look like? Is it effective? Because I think that's something people often want to know, like, oh, am I just throwing a letter or a form email into the ether and it disappears and I feel better, but I haven't done anything? You can take it, either one of you.
Maybe I'll just start because I wanted to respond to Danny's comment, which is about the feeling that it's a drop in the bucket.
Exactly.
And what we're doing. And I think the key to that is whatever it is, you have to do it with other people. Don't try to do it on your own. And I actually wasn't going to mention this, but I realized we're talking to a New York-based group, and there's a great movie called No Impact Man. Anyone seen that? No Impact Man. Go look it up. I'm sure it's on Netflix or something. And this guy did a project where he tried to live with no impact on the earth in New York City, in Manhattan, in an apartment in Manhattan. And every month he addresses a different issue. One is energy, one is transportation, plastics, all this stuff. And at the end, it's a book. You can read the book, which is great, but you can also get it in about an hour and a half if you watch the movie. And at the end of the movie, they ask him, if you can only do one thing, what should you do? And he says, join a group. There's only so much you can do on your own. But if you're with other people, you can have a really big impact. So I'll just mention, what we do. We're a completely volunteer grassroots network. And this is Jewish Earth Alliance. And what we do is we try to help Jewish communities to have an impact on policy by taking the first step of getting involved with building a relationship with their members of Congress. And our idea is that if you are involved consistently every month, learning about the issues and contacting your members of Congress, that's how you build up that impact. And we see that is actually working. And our idea is to make it easy for Jewish communities. I had some slides, but I'm not even going to bother with that now. I don't think we have time for that. But we provide all the tools to take that first step by getting involved as a community, by providing speakers. We have volunteers who will speak to your community, and that's become a lot easier now that we have Zoom. We provide a monthly action alert and a sample letter so people can write personal letters to their members of Congress. We provide a monthly network call. Anyone in any part of the country can call in. It's just a 1-hour meeting with some Jewish learning, a speaker from one of the coalitions that we're working with. So you'll learn something about the issues. This month, we had someone from Transportation America, which was amazing. And then we can help you to meet with your members of Congress. And it works really well, I just want to say, for especially for synagogues, because there's no need to take any policy positions as an organization, which is a big challenge for synagogues. Everybody writes their own personal letter to their member of Congress, and there's a lot of research that personal letters really do have an impact, especially because they're coming. We have a group, there's a bunch of them coming to that office, and we find that after just a couple of months, the staff in those legislators' office recognize us, and they actually recognize that we're coming from an ethical faith perspective and want to hear from us. So that's the method that we use. And if you're interested in learning more about it, you can go to our website, jewishearthalliance.org.
That's great, Mirele. Thank you so much. And Mirele, could Hillel's use this?
Anybody can use it. Actually, we're finding that other faith groups want to use our materials, which is really, really nice also. But yeah, it's really user-friendly, let's say, very user-friendly for any group.
So month by month, you're building capacity, building these relationships, members of Congress. This is how long-term change happens, right? Yeah. Great. Okay, Dahlia, how did Dayenu do its work?
Sure.
I'm very curious. I don't know fully well.
So the sort of mechanism of social change that we're promoting is what we call movement building. And the idea is what each individual does is a drop in the bucket. But if individuals come together into groups, and then those groups come together in larger groups, and they come together in even larger groups, that's how we build a movement of power. So if your local community or your synagogue or your Hillel comes together, that's already a group that has power and agency. And then you join with your larger federation or state level groups or synagogues in your area, that's even more power. And if the Jewish community joins with the Catholics, that's even more power. And then we join a larger climate movement. Together, we can have a tremendous impact. So we are encouraging Jews across the country to join and start what we call Dayenu circles. And I'll put the link to existing Dayenu circles across the country. We have about 40 so far and others in various state of launching. And the idea is that together we can build power to overcome the forces of denial and delay. And also we can build community because there's a lot of research out there and we know this is why we participate in Jewish life, that we sustain ourselves in this work by doing it together and doing it in community and do it in a way that's rooted in our history and our teaching and our wisdom. So that is how the mechanism that we hope to use. And then we can use various tactics and tools to try and influence policy, whether that's meeting with elected officials, making phone calls, planning direct actions outside of powerful offices and our legislators' offices. So the idea here is we're joining together and we're joining together with the larger climate movement, and then we'll try and use all the different tools and tactics at our disposal to fight on various fronts to address systemic climate issues. So I know there's a hand raised. I don't know if we're jumping to questions.
We can jump to Danny. But I just want to mention, Dahlia, you did a lot of phone banking, voter activating around the election, right? That's like part of
that was going to be my case study. We talked about, beforehand I talked about a win to Sharon. So I'll put in the chat our Chutzpah 2020 campaign, which was an example of trying to bring Jews together for meaningful climate action that is then joined with a larger group that's joined with a larger group. So it was part of the Faith Climate Justice Voters effort, so a multi-faith effort. And we worked with 161 volunteers, we had 23 live Get Out the Vote textathons, and we were able to reach over 800,000 climate concerned voters. And they found that type of outreach led to increased voter turnout of about 1.7 percentage points. So, every little bit does make the difference. And that's a great example of the Jewish community coming together, joining with multi-faith partners and a larger Get Out the Vote effort.
I joined one of those and I was very, it was very well run. And also I think it was exciting. There are a lot of phone banking efforts around elections, but it was exciting to be with climate activists who happen to be Jewish also. And it was very powerful. Danny, talk to us.
Yeah, so I just wanted to key into something that Mirele mentioned, which was that, I'm trying to get yourself together as a group, and you were saying in a way that doesn't, in a sense, deal with synagogue policy, for example, because I think, if you're, if a large part of your community, say, is conservative in their views, and for them, climate activism, is like pushes their buttons in a bad way, and so you have to kind of find a way to galvanize people without alienating other people. So I was wondering if either of you or both of you have had experience of dealing with sort of broad-ranging. It's not just operating with like-minded people, but but dealing within community structures where you've got the range and you've got to sort of tiptoe between not sort of crush any eggshells.
Great. If we want to harness the whole community, and in this case, the whole Jewish community, how do we get people of all beliefs and backgrounds, some of whom are suspicious of this work?
There's not one answer to that, but I would say that a few things that I have seen and learned over the years is start with education and connect it with Jewish learning. I mean, there's, start with something like today's conference, talking about Jewish perspectives on this, learning some of the sources, and talking, and then bringing in the contemporary issues and how they relate. Celebrate the holidays together. We talked a lot about joy, some organizations like Kanfei Nisharim has done a great job about talking about water issues and how they relate to Sukkot. Start with that kind of education. And then if you want to do advocacy, don't expect everyone to come along with you. I belong to a synagogue, not an Orthodox synagogue, and it's a fairly progressive synagogue, but nobody really wanted to get involved in advocacy. In fact, we even had a green committee that was doing work on things to do with the congregation, and had a garden. No interest in advocacy. So we started another group, a separate.
And Mirele is very persistent, so that's saying a lot.
You have to be persistent. Anyway, we started a separate group, and we started doing things not in the name of the synagogue, but we're all members of the synagogue. And actually today we had a really wonderful, is today still, no, yesterday on Shabbat, we had a wonderful thing happen. We've been doing a campaign on Stop the Money Pipeline, which is stopping the financing for fossil fuel infrastructure projects. And that's something that's, people talk about getting your institution to divest and so on. That's really hard to do. And Jewish institutions have not been very open to that. So we started with a campaign to get individual members of the congregation to sign up for a socially responsible credit card, which is, an individual step. You want to do it, you do it. You don't want to do it, you don't do it, And along with that, a lot of education about the financial issues related to climate change and so on. And yesterday we had an aliyah in the service. We honored everyone who had participated in our
Amazing
campaign. And it was really moving, and really, I think, not everybody participated, but everybody saw and everybody learned that their peers and friends and neighbors were participating in something really meaningful. So.
Thanks, Mirele. I'm mindful of our time. So Dahlia, if you don't mind, you can respond to this idea and then also share, just as we close here, as we all go out, like what is the way that we can get involved in Dayenu? Like, and so that we can tell people who aren't in this room, what's the first step? What should we do?
Sure. And my quick answer too is that if you look at the national news, if you look at Washington, D.C., climate is painted as a partisan issue. But if you look at the state and local level, that oftentimes is not the case. Massachusetts just passed a sweeping piece of climate legislation signed by its Republican governor. Maryland also has some of the most ambitious climate legislation in the country, again, Republican governor. So it's worth looking at that. And I think that this issue is often painted with a broad brush, but there are evangelical Christians that have a climate group. Coal miners have come out in support of climate investments. Utilities have come out. The landscape has really changed in recent years. And so it's worth having a conversation too about, are we going off of assumptions? Are we going off of the news? Or are we actually looking at our community and where different stakeholders fall? So that's my response around climate as a potential partisan issue. In terms of how to get involved, it's actually a really exciting time to get involved because since our launch, we are now starting to do things in person. So I would say the best, the first place to start is to sign up for email updates, and I'll put the link to our email sign up. If you want to be kept abreast of what we're planning, that's a great place to start. But I would really draw attention to this particular website, which is around our summer campaign. We are, for the first time in over a decade, there's a chance to pass meaningful climate legislation in Washington, D.C. And we cannot let that moment pass us up. So we are organizing actions across the country this summer that are rooted in Jewish spirit and tradition around the month of Elul and the high holidays, focused on putting the pressure on our senators to pass climate legislation. So we hope you'll join us. You're always welcome to check back there for how to get involved or how to join a local action. And if you are on our email list, you'll find out more information. You can also follow us on social media at Join Dayenu and Dayenu Action.
Wow, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mirele, I see what you wrote. We'd be happy to invite a speaker for a small group. Anything else that people should know?
Yeah, I just encourage you to join one of our meetings. We have them every month on the third Tuesday of the month. So the next one coming up, I think it's August 17th. It's just a 1 hour Zoom meeting, and you can get a feel and get some inspiration. If you can't do it this month, come next month. Thank you very much for being here.
Amazing. Thank you both. Thank you all for making it, slogging through this long evening. But you know, our future is at stake, so I think it's worth the slog. But I will hope to see all of you soon. Thank you for being part of this, and thank you for the work you do, Mirele and Dahlia.